Tonight, Iran still defiant as Donald Trump weighs up his options.
You don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
More missiles over Tehran and a cryptic message from the US president as America's allies discuss possible military support. But as American jets and ships converge on the region and Iran's leader rejects a call for unconditional surrender, Mossad's former intelligence chief tells me the conflict could end within days.
The fact that the Israeli Air Force dominate completely above the air sky above Iran, this is shocking in a way. This is amazing.
Fuel queues and internet blackout and food shortages. We'll hear what life is like now for millions of Iranians. So what will Donald Trump do? Whose advice will he listen to? And what could it mean for this region? That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. I'm Yalda Hakim, live in Jerusalem. We may or we may not. Listening to the US president outside the White House today, it does seem that he hasn't yet decided what he's going to do next. Last night, we told you all options were on the table, including a direct hit on Iran's most important nuclear site, hidden deep underground with a 13-ton bomb. We know Donald Trump's choices, but no one really knows what he's thinking. That's why America's allies are looking for clues, with security meetings convened in the UK and in France today as governments weigh up possible military involvement. Tonight, Israel is bombarding Western Iran. The Supreme Leader has insisted he will not surrender. But senior intelligence figures here tell me there could be a ceasefire within days. And that brings me back to the dilemma for the man in the White House. This choice has exposed a rift in his inner circle and in his pursuit of legacy. Does he set aside his America first and alone philosophy? If he intervenes, can he really still cast himself as the world's peacemaker? We'll discuss that all tonight. Let's get started, though, with this report from our US correspondent, David Blevins.
The Stars and Stripes and the strategy. They raised a new flag at the White House and the stakes even higher. The president not ruling out a US strike on Iran.
I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate.
In a post online, the Iranian mission to the UN said no Iranian official had ever been asked to grovel at the gates of the White House, adding the only thing more despicable than what they called Donald Trump's lies was his threat to take out Iran's supreme leader. But he's not backing down on his demand for a white flag from Iran.
What does unconditional surrender mean?
Well, you know what it means, unconditional.
Can you explain it for those who don't?
Two very simple words, very simple. Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it, I give up, no more. Then we go blow up all the, all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place.
But behind the scenes, Republicans are split. Some interventionist, some isolationist. Texas Senator Ted Cruz and hugely popular right-wing commentator Tucker Carlson, both Trump allies, publicly clashing over the issue.
What's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country.
And Senator Cruz remains defiant.
I think Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon is an acute threat to the national security of the United States, and I think the president is acting to stand with Israel, our friend and ally, and it's acting to defend America.
But isn't it a breach of his campaign promise not to bring America back into another foreign war?
No, he is not. Nobody's talking about invading Iran. We're not going to see boots on the ground.
And what do you say to Republican voters who say this is not what the American people want?
The overwhelming majority of Americans, nearly 80%, support President Trump and support President Trump defending us against an Iranian nuclear weapon.
This is a critical decision for President Trump, not just in terms of global stability or the potential implications of American involvement in another foreign war, but because it's the issue threatening to split his own base. He's big on symbolism, but the judgment call he has to make will be significant. In London, Paris and elsewhere, governments are awaiting America's next move. It more than overshadows his presidency. It could define it.
And David joins us now from Washington. And David, we are seeing this dilemma for Donald Trump. On the one hand, he is ratcheting up the rhetoric. On the other hand, we're hearing from the isolationists who are pushing back on Donald Trump taking a further step in assisting Israel further.
Yes, Yalda. Well, the president has been speaking again in the last few minutes. He says there will be a meeting shortly in what he called the war room, the situation room in the White House. So things could change further. But right now, his stated position remains that he may or may not become involved in military action against Iran. He says he likes to leave these things to the very last minute before making a decision, but insists that only America has the capability to deal with Iran's underground nuclear facilities. He did acknowledge this battle going on within his own base, but was largely critical of allies who suggest he shouldn't even be considering military action, saying if they believe it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, then they should oppose me. I think that is the closest he's ever come to suggesting he is prepared to breach his election pledge not to bring America into another foreign war if he considers it necessary to do so. His position has clearly shifted from supporting negotiations to a place where he's now demanding unconditional surrender, and he's really trying to balance two things. He is making military preparations, but of course he is still talking about the possibility of a diplomatic solution. That remains on the table. He's even suggesting the Iranians could come here to Washington. But I suppose striking a balance within his own camp may be the biggest challenge of them all.
Yeah, indeed. David, thank you very much for that update there. Now, in Tehran today, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei issued a defiant message. He rejected Donald Trump's calls for surrender, threatening that any US involvement will cause irreparable damage to them. Here in Israel, many seem unfazed by the threat of all-out war. There's a confidence from their Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and on the streets, they've called Iran's bluff with or without US support. Here's Cordelia Lynch.
Israel has a decisive edge in this conflict, dominating the skies over Tehran for 6 days. But in a defiant address, Iran's supreme leader vowed to stand firm and issued a warning to America.
The Iranian nation will not surrender to anyone aiming to impose anything on it. The damage to America, if it gets militarily involved, would be an irreparable damage, no doubt.
But this former national security advisor says that's an empty threat. And the US is only needed for one thing: bunker-busting bombs to destroy Iran's Fordo nuclear site. Do you think that Israel needs America militarily in this moment?
We need America for one purpose. There is a big facility in Fordo. We don't have the capabilities to destroy it from the air. The Americans have better capabilities to do it from the air. And for that, we need the Americans.
Iran has warned that any US intervention would be a recipe for all-out regional war. Do you think Netanyahu has an appetite for that?
I think that the Iranians are using irrelevant language. They are bluffing. They don't have the capabilities that they had 2 years ago. Hezbollah is gone. Hamas doesn't exist as a threat.
Many Israelis have been raised on the belief Iran is an existential threat. Now, there's some swagger on show.
I want to finish with Iran, and all the tourists come to Israel. Now, no tourists.
Netanyahu knows he not only has the support of the public, but also his opponents. This is Neve Tzedek, the first Jewish neighborhood built outside the old city of Jaffa. Iran has issued an evacuation notice to residents here, but it doesn't feel like it. People seem unfazed, almost confident in the face of that threat.
I'm very relaxed here. This is Israel, you know. We have a power, we have a good army, and we are safe here.
But this is a perilous moment with no white flag yet. All eyes are on America and a leader who can so quickly turn. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Tel Aviv, Israel.
Let's bring in our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes. And Deborah, we saw a Cobra meeting being convened today. The Prime Minister's also been speaking with other world leaders. And we also understand that the foreign ministers of Germany, France and Britain will be speaking to the Iranians this Friday.
Yes, and this is something that's been coordinated with the US. So, of course, you know, the UK, France and Germany were three key members of the original deal, the nuclear deal with Iran, along with the US and Russia and China, that Donald Trump torpedoed in his first term in office. And that sort of set the stage, really, for what we're seeing today with Israel taking this move and striking against Iran's nuclear facilities, believing that the regime is trying to develop a nuclear bomb. For the UK, though, they are still, according to one government insider that I've spoken to, they still don't know what Donald Trump is deciding to do. And I think that's quite interesting. Obviously, publicly, you're hearing the US president being very vague whether he is going to strike Iran or not. But interesting that in private, too, the UK, for example, also unsure. But for the UK government, for Sir Keir Starmer, he needs to decide, really, whether or not he's going to allow British bases to be used by American military power if they are going to start launching strikes in Iran. For example, Diego Garcia, which is a big base that the UK has in the Indian Ocean, you've got American B-52 bombers there, also warplanes. We don't yet know whether the B-2 stealth bombers that would be used would potentially be used, because they've got these bunker-busting bombs that could hit the Fordo nuclear facility, which is buried under a mountain. But whether or not the UK will give the green light for that base to be used to launch strikes, that's a massive question. Also, I understand the Americans might ask Britain if they can base aircraft refuelling tankers at the British RAF base in Cyprus, at Kritiri. Again, at the moment, the American posture is defensive, so the UK is obviously supportive of that kind of action, but whether it would support military strikes, that's a different matter.
Yeah, indeed, and we'll be speaking more on the military hardware a little later in the programme. For now, Deborah, thanks very much. So, is the confidence from the Israeli government shared by senior intelligence figures here in Israel? Well, earlier, I sat down with the former director of intelligence at Mossad, Zohar Palti. He told me that the conflict could be ended within the next few days if the international community stepped in. Just have a listen. Has anything surprised you about the operations over the course of the last 5 or 6 days?
One thing, we knew that we were going to be good. We told everybody that we know how to do it alone. Everybody was, skeptical and things like that. But the fact that the Israeli Air Force dominate completely above the air sky, above Iran, in 36, 48 hours, that we took down all the air defense that the Iranians have, this is shocking, in a way. This is amazing.
Why does that surprise you? Was air dominance not part of the plan for Israel?
It is, and that's a reason that we established it in the first, let's say, 48 hours. But then again, we thought that it would be much harder. And, because I don't want to brag or to do things like that. I mean, it was much more fast than we anticipated.
I guess the question is, how does this end? And could it continue?
I think we are right now on the verge that in the next few days, whether it's 2 days or 3 days or a week, but days, we can call to a ceasefire. We will need, of course, the international community, and when I say the international community, it's basically the Americans in this case, And no doubt it will need the support of the E3, meaning the Europeans, that will come with a good solution and agreement better than it used to be in the JCPOA. I think the circumstances are right now ready. This is a defining moment, and I hope that people understand that to seize the moment from my leadership over here in the States of Israel, but with the help of as I said, with friends in the West.
I just want to ask you about a key factor, missiles versus interceptors. Talk us through Iran's capabilities. What do we know about what they have and how long they can sustain this if this carries on?
My working assumption that the Iranian will sustain with their capabilities. I'm not right now measuring whether they will launch tonight or in 5 minutes from now, 20, 50, or 100. We need to get it over. We need to get it over. I mean, the Iranians are threatening our security for so long time. They thought that they are immune. They thought that they will use the proxies like the Hamas and Hezbollah, and they are. By the way, the Iranians are in shock right now because since 1988, when they finished the war with Iraq after 8 years, no Iranian felt what we are feeling over here in Israel in the last 20 decades. Meaning, in the last 2 decades, sorry. Meaning that Hezbollah used to launch missiles all over the states of Israel, Hamas, Qassam missiles. The resilience of the Israelis, sadly, we know how to deal with this issue.
Let's talk about the intelligence disparity, because for the last couple of decades, Benjamin Netanyahu has said Iran is just a few months away, just a few weeks away from building the bomb. And yet, even when you were director of intelligence at Mossad, the advice was Iran is not necessarily ready for a bomb, and that bought the world another 15 years. And yet, that is something that Benjamin Netanyahu has continued to focus on. And there is a disparity with the Americans. The Americans, Tulsi Gabbard just a couple of months ago said they're not close to building a bomb. Why is there this disparity?
We'll come to the point that I will give you an interview and we'll speak about exactly this issue. And again, I choose right now not to focus about this issue because I think it's not relevant. We're already in the game right now. We are already right now above Iran and Tehran. So it's like, in a way, it's post-mortem. It's a fair question, it's a tough question, it's a good one, it's a very professional. What would be the point of view between, I don't know, the international community, the American international, the intelligence community, or the Israeli intelligence community, or the British, or the French, or the Germans. This is the main countries that are dealing with these issues. But over here, I think it's more accurate to emphasize the strategic situation that we are in. And it's not related whether the Iranian right now were in the final stage to plug right now 2, I don't know, wires, and they will have a bomb or not. It's more correct to look about the strategic development that happened from October 7, the fact that we felt that we are completely surrounded by bad guys right now that want to eliminate us, that the Iranian is conducting everything, and we said enough is enough. And we came to the point that the nuclear issue is part of the surface-to-surface, the ballistic missiles, the Qassam missiles, the fact that they're coming with hundreds and thousands of people trying to penetrate to our kibbutzim, moshavim, and our cities and killing and raping like civilians. We said enough is enough. So the nuclear issue came to the point. If the nuclear issue was a standalone, as you ask me, that's a fair question. But I suggest to look about the whole picture and how we came to this issue right now.
Do you think that it could further escalate if the Americans enter this conflict?
I will take your question, but I will take the word escalate down. With American, no one escalate. When the Americans are in the game, the Americans have capability that no other country in the world have. The Americans have the ability to take Fordow in a couple of hours. The Americans have the ability to take all the regime in a couple of hours. The leader, the Iranian leader right now is in a crossroad and a very tough decision. The existence of the regime, if it will jeopardize the Americans, no doubt, but if it will continue with us as well, or to give up his inspiration right now to build a military nuclear bomb. I think it's an easy decision.
When you say everything is on the table, I mean, what do you mean? Why are Iranian civilians, for example, being told by Donald Trump to evacuate their homes?
Because we are flying right now above Tehran easily, we can do, and the Americans can do whatever we want right now above Tehran. So I think as a leader of the free world, he said to them something very responsible. Guys, if you're not going to stop it, there will be consequences.
And when Donald Trump says to the Supreme Leader, we know exactly where you are, but we're not going to do anything to you yet, what is your reaction to that?
I think to emphasize the word yet. I'm taking from this sentence the word yet. And then, by the way, it's exactly as the answer that I gave you a minute ago. For the time being, it's not. Till the moment that we'll decide to change it, because the Iranians are not going to get the message from the Americans or from us. Enough is enough.
And is this an opportunity, if the Iranians come back to the negotiating table, to have some kind of ceasefire deal and come to some kind of negotiation with the Palestinians as well?
I won't connect the two parts together, because the Iranian and the Palestinians are two different issues. It's apple and oranges. And by the way, the Iranians right now are not in a negotiation issue. If the Americans, as the president says yesterday, he is not coming to negotiate with the Iranians right now. The Iranians have to sign, we are not building a bomb, and this is it.
And the Palestinian issue?
And the Palestinian, I think that we have a beautiful, really, really good chance right now, and this is something that I hope that my government will do, to wrap it up also in Gaza, and to close the war in Gaza, and to try to bring some more humanitarian aid and things like that to the people over there. Only one condition: our hostages have to be back today, now. Without that, nothing will happen in Gaza.
That was Zohar Palti, the former Mossad Director of Intelligence. You're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Still to come on the programme. Could Donald Trump really strike Iran? We'll speak to someone who knows how he thinks, the former Chief of Staff at the United States National Security Council.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin. The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Welcome back to the programme. Now, despite all the noise from within his party, some of Donald Trump's rhetoric might suggest he's in favour of intervening to end the tit-for-tat missile launches between Israel and Iran. But could there be more clues to the president's mindset in what's happening on the ground? The US has been moving their military assets to the region. Our security and defence analyst, Professor Michael Clark, has been taking a look at what it could all mean for this conflict.
There's been a lot of US military movement into the Middle East in the last 24 hours. President Trump is evidently giving himself a full range of military options. The Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group, that's an aircraft carrier and its accompanying attack ships and submarines, as well as the battleship Princeton, is already in the Arabian Sea. The George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group is moving from the Atlantic towards the Eastern Mediterranean. And the Nimitz, with all of its strike assets, left the Philippine Sea several days ago, and that's on its way from the Indian Ocean towards the Gulf. So the US will have 2, maybe 3 carrier strike groups on station across the region very soon, each of them with several squadrons of F-18 fighter bombers with missiles and drones that it can deploy against a range of adversaries. And the US and also its allies are sending more aircraft to the region. Britain has reinforced its Typhoon jet fleet at Akrotiri in Cyprus, and US planes may be dispersed around the various US bases in the region, in Qatar, in Kuwait, in the United Arab Emirates, and in Saudi Arabia. Of these, the 2 biggest bases are in Qatar and the UAE, where the US stations forces permanently. A dozen American F-35s were seen leaving Mildenhall in Suffolk with their accompanying refueling tanker only yesterday. Now, of course, everyone is asking whether the US is about to deploy the massive bunker-busting bomb, the GBU-57, the massive ordnance penetrator, as it's called, and that could destroy deep underground facilities inside Iran. Well, that bomb can only be carried on the B-2 Spirit strategic bomber, this one. But they don't even have to be in the region to operate. B-2s can operate from Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, or they could still fly from their home base in Missouri, drop bombs in Iran, and still make it home again. Meanwhile, Israel and Iran are attacking each other from the air. Now, the pattern of Israeli attacks on Iran indicates how methodically they're working through a target set to damage Iran's nuclear program, to hobble its military and attack the infrastructure that supports the military. Iran's attacks against Israel, on the other hand, are less methodical and almost certainly less effective. With lower accuracy, fewer missiles getting through, the Iranians are hitting more civilian and residential targets, and to be honest, that won't do them very much strategic good. We're evidently approaching some sort of turning point in this crisis. Military offensives and preparations for even greater offensives don't hang fire for very long, and military activity tends to take on a life of its own if it is not very carefully controlled.
That was Professor Michael Clark there. Now, 6 days ago, the UN's nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, declared Iran was failing to meet its nuclear obligations for the first time in nearly 20 years. Israel's wave of missile strikes on the country began that night. Earlier, I spoke to Rafael Grossi, Director General of the UN's nuclear watchdog. I asked whether that report meant Iran was making a nuclear bomb. Have a listen.
For us, on the basis of our inspections, on the basis of our own evaluations, we came to the conclusion that we could not affirm that there is any systematic effort in Iran at the moment to manufacture a nuclear weapon. While we say that, at the same time, we say Iran is enriching 60% uranium, the only country in the world doing that. So there were elements for concern. But as to saying they are building manufacturing a nuclear weapon, no, we didn't say that.
Are you worried about these nuclear facilities potentially being targeted now and the impact of that?
Of course we are. Of course we are. We have this concern. This concern also proceeds from a nuclear safety perspective, because, of course, there is always the possibility of a radiological event, dispersion of nuclear material in the atmosphere. So, indeed, we have a concern.
Concern from the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency there. Well, Israel has made no secret about its desire to destroy Iran's nuclear program. But one site proves to be the most elusive, Iran's Fordow facility, buried deep beneath a mountain. Our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, asked the IDF whether their targets are out of reach without American support. Just have a listen.
Well, we proved that we have many capabilities, and as I said before, the nuclear program is like a puzzle, many parts. And we are hitting those parts gradually. We are fighting the Iranian regime and his vicious plans to destroy Israel, mainly the nuclear program and the ballistic missiles capabilities.
So how does the bombing of the state television channel square with that?
This building is being managed by the IRGC, and they are using it for military purposes, and they are calling for the destruction of Israel. This is why we hit this building. It's part of the plan.
But senior leadership is also part of that plan, as we've already seen. And the Supreme Leader is the most senior leader.
Right. And we are targeting the head of the snake, military-wise. We are targeting the top echelon of the military.
That's our Alistair Bunkle there speaking to the IDF. Now, a nuclear strike or a targeted assassination. Those are the two of the options on the table at the moment. Live now to Washington, and former Chief of Staff of the National Security Council under Donald Trump, Fred Fleets. Thank you so much, Fred, for joining us here on the programme. You've worked closely with President Trump during his first term. Just tell us what you think he's currently thinking, because, you know, the whole world is trying to figure it out, and he's just being, you know, Donald Trump, where he's saying I may or I may not.
President Trump does not want to get into a war with Iran. He does not want to attack Iran. He's left the door open for Iran resuming negotiations, and Trump is going to make Iran a pretty good deal for a peaceful nuclear program. Iran will have to give up its enrichment program, which is part of a weapons program. We know that now. And there will be incredible economic benefits. Will Iran agree to that? I don't know. But if Iran doesn't agree, the clock is running out. Trump's a man of his word. He gave the Iranians 60 days. And if they don't agree soon to this, Trump has concluded that an Iranian nuclear weapon will be here soon. And it is not just a threat to Israel, it is a threat to the United States. And that's why I think there's a good chance Trump will drop bunker buster bombs on the Fordow facility.
So let me just pick up on that, Fred, because what you said at the beginning there felt like a statement perhaps, you know, last Thursday. We're now in a place where Iran and Israel are at war, effectively. Is Iran still in a position to make a deal? I mean, I was just speaking there to the former Mossad director of intelligence who said there is no deal. They're just going to have to agree to the conditions now, and that is that they are going to have to agree to no bomb ever rather than an actual negotiation at this point.
Iran will have to agree to give up its Fordow site and to agree to stop enriching uranium. Those are not a lot to ask, given the incredible benefits Iran would get if it wants a peaceful nuclear program. The U.S. will help it build one. But see, that was never a legitimate argument. Iran is enriching huge amounts of uranium to make dozens of nuclear weapons. And I hope its leaders will come around, but I'm worried that Iran is run by fanatical Islamists who simply will fight to the end. It will not make a reasonable decision for their people. I hope I'm wrong.
And how long do you think Donald Trump is likely to mull this over? Do you believe it could be days before, if he puts more pressure on the Iranians, and we know the Europeans will be speaking to the Iranians this Friday, if they are remaining defiant and they don't move on this point, is that the point in which you believe that Donald Trump will take action?
I don't know how much more pressure Trump could put on Iran's leaders or how he could be more clear. I think the president could make the decision very soon, but he hasn't told me what he's going to do. My guess is the decision will be very soon.
And what about this MAGA base? The likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene, even the commentator Tucker Carlson. We've been hearing from the likes of Steve Bannon as well. These leading figures within the MAGA base who have been quite critical. Although Steve Bannon has come out in the last few hours saying, regardless of what Donald Trump decides to do, even the MAGA base will stand behind him and behind whatever decision he makes.
Well, Trump supporters don't walk in lockstep and they have different opinions. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to take the position that Vice President Vance is, that they trust President Trump to make the right decision. And Trump has said that I came up with the America First and national security, and I've decided that stopping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon is part of that approach. Not all of Trump's MAGA supporters will go along with that, but I think most of them will.
Do you also believe that, indirectly, America is already in this war? Because no doubt they are supporting Israel. They are helping refuel aircraft. And if needed, they will step in and assist when they need the interceptors as well.
I think Iran has been at war with the United States for a long time. It's been trying to assassinate U.S. leaders, including President Trump. It sent a team to kidnap an Iranian American from New York City twice in 2022 and 2020. The same woman. It tried to blow up a restaurant in Washington in I think 2018. There's all kinds of instances. It's estimated that Iran has killed 1,000 Americans over the past 30 years. How about the IEDs it sent into Iraq that killed about 200 Americans and maimed hundreds more? This is not a peace-loving state. I'm not calling for regime change, and neither is President Trump. But if this regime goes away, I think the world will thank the Israelis.
Fred Fleets, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. That's the former Chief of Staff of the National Security Council. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, how are people in Iran feeling about the ongoing conflict? We'll hear from residents in 2 cities about their life under bombardment.
gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Welcome back. Well, as we've spoken about before on the programme, those most affected by conflict are often the people who never ask for it. Communication with those inside Iran has been difficult since this conflict erupted. But Sky's Lisa Holland has managed to speak to people in the cities of Tehran and Mashhad as they describe a worsening situation in the country. Have a listen.
These are videos shared with Sky News from people under Israeli bombardment inside Iran. They've painted a picture of fear and uncertainty. Communication is now incredibly difficult, and people are afraid to talk to Western journalists. But we managed to establish Zoom contact with a member of a group of anti-regime activists in the capital, Tehran. We've changed his voice to protect his identity.
I can hear the sounds from my living room, from moment to moment, because I'm in the center of Tehran. I've experienced the sound of explosions and fires. I've seen it with my own eyes. People are getting panicked, and they're helping each other.
With a near total internet blackout in Iran, British Iranians in the UK, like Amir and Atiye, are struggling to get in touch with friends and family.
Yeah, that's not working.
As we film, after several attempts, Amir gets through to his friend, who we're calling Ali.
Can you put him on speaker?
Yeah, sure.
Ali has agreed for us to use his voice.
My wife is in a hospital, and I have to go there all the time. I don't have any view. I don't know how can I handle that.
Ali shared pictures with us that he'd filmed of huge petrol queues. He spoke to us from the eastern city of Mashhad.
This is the problem I have right now, and I'm looking for gas. All the people fear and have a problem to prepare money to buy anything. The bank is closed. I'm really angry. We are stuck in the middle of war between our government and Israel.
But with America threatening to join the conflict, the activist we spoke to in Tehran told us the Iranian government is still strong.
At the moment, there is high security inside Tehran, and the regime is still able to silence people. So that's why you're not seeing those people who are against the Islamic Republic. They're not coming out, because if they come out, they will die.
Are you afraid of American intervention in this conflict?
Not at all, because the Americans, we believe, are not going to fight with the people. They are fighting with the Islamic Republic. So that's why we're not afraid.
Communication with Iran is getting worse by the day. Activists say this could be a critical moment in Iranian history. Lisa Holland, Sky News.
Well, civilians in both Iran and Israel are facing daily bombardment and spending most nights in bomb shelters. A few nights ago, here in Israel, the missile alarms went off while I was live on air. On this week's The World podcast, I've been telling my co-host Richard Engel what that was like. Have a look. So you've got, a sort of about 10 minutes to get yourself into a bunker. And now I've spoken to Israelis who have said, when the Houthis were launching rockets or when Hamas was launching rockets or when Hezbollah was launching rockets, we were just getting on with our lives. We weren't going down. The bulk of us weren't getting into bunkers. But this is no joke. This is serious. People here have dealt with sirens and bunkers in the past, but this is now no joke. Well, that was a snippet of this week's The World podcast. To hear the rest of the episode, go to either Apple or Spotify. Make sure you're following us so that you never miss an episode. Now, this is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up, Russia warns the United States not to get involved in the Middle East as tensions continue to ramp up.
chorus reverberated to the sights, sounds and smells of conflict.
There's a focal point to all this anger, and that is Emmanuel Macron.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels.
There are dozens of people desperately clambering to get onto that boat. It is a chaotic scene, but it's being watched by dozens of French police officers on the beach.
I've reported on migration across Europe, close up on the ground, understanding that sense of desperation and meeting the criminal gangs behind it.
This old fishing boat set off from the Libyan port of Tobruk. There were 606 people who were on board. So we've been distributing life jackets to all the people on board this boat, and now the first person is coming on board. This is the ugly side of Italian football.
In Italy, everything is really organized.
Football's problems with hooliganism, racism were just dormant, and now they're back and they're getting worse.
We cover so many countries, languages and cultures and work hard to gain trust to bring you the full story first.
Help is slowly reaching these places. It's not just homes, but whole streets like this one that have been reduced to rubble and dust. This is a picture of destruction.
Everywhere you look in this mountaintop community, there is absolute devastation.
These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again.
Getting the chance to tell people's stories, it's a privilege.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin. The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back to the programme. We've just got some developing news here. Now, President Trump referred to the Situation Room meeting that he is convening to discuss the war between Israel and Iran. We now understand from a senior White House official that meeting has begun. So as soon as we get some more information about the conversations that may come out of that Situation Room meeting that President Trump is convening to discuss the ongoing conflict and escalation here in the Middle East, we will be bringing that to you. Now, Russia has warned the United States not to strike Iran, as it would radically destabilize the Middle East. Speaking about the conflict, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister also said Israeli strikes risk triggering a nuclear catastrophe. Well, let's bring in our Moscow correspondent, Ivor Bennett, who joins us from St. Petersburg. And Ivor, I mean, we've seen the sort of backing that Iran has provided Russia over the course of the last few years in Ukraine's war. They are allies, they are partners and friends. So no surprises, really, that Russia has stepped in and tried to intervene.
Yeah, that's right. Because Russia really faces a tricky balancing act here. They have very strong ties with Iran, as you say, which have deepened since the war in Ukraine began. But they've also got historically warm relations with Israel. And, of course, they're also now trying to forge closer bonds with the US. So they're kind of caught in the middle, diplomatically at least. Initially, I think they saw this as an opportunity. They were very quick to offer their services as a potential mediator, hoping, I think, to gain some traction and some leverage with Washington if, say, they could have brought Tehran back to the negotiating table when it comes to the nuclear program. But no one took them up on that offer of mediation. So now what we're seeing is this growing anxiety in Russia amongst its officials over what comes next. And their principal concern is that they could be on the brink of losing their closest Middle Eastern ally. That's the fear if the US gets involved in Israel's military campaign, because if that happens, they think then the Iranian regime might well topple. So all day we've been hearing from Russian officials calling for de-escalation, essentially. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov told the US not to get involved. He urged them not to, saying that they risked radical escalation in the region. We've heard from Maria Zakharova, the spokeswoman for Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, saying that the world is just millimeters away from catastrophe as a result of these Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. They are desperate to talk Donald Trump down, knowing that if the Iranian regime falls, then Moscow will lose its second Middle Eastern ally in just 6 months, following the toppling of the Assad regime in Syria, of course. So they're trying to use all the clout they have now with these three powers to try and to keep the status quo.
Yeah, absolutely, Ivor. And of course, for Russia, it is dealing with its own war on Ukraine.
Yeah, that's right. And the UK has just launched some new sanctions on Russia, and making Russia, of course, the most sanctioned economy in the world right now. More than 2,300 sanctioned individuals and entities from the UK alone. But being here, it really doesn't feel like it, as you'll see from my report.
Walk into a Russian supermarket and you wouldn't expect to see this. Shelves stocked with Western goods more than 3 years into the country's supposed isolation. The most sanctioned economy in the world really doesn't look like it.
Among the companies that stopped selling to Russia after it invaded Ukraine was Coca-Cola. So in theory, its products shouldn't be available here. But have a look at what I just found on a trip to the supermarket. One can from France, Goût Original it says, another from Poland with the Polish writing on the side. This one's from Iraq, you can see Arabic clearly on the back, and I've even got a bottle here from the UK.
They are known as parallel imports, products that enter Russia via third countries whether manufacturers like it or not. Coca-Cola declined to comment, but it's happening with other stuff too. Sky News has reported extensively on how luxury European cars are still coming into Russia despite sanctions. And now we've spoken to some of those who've imported them. In this Moscow showroom, we found a Porsche, a Mercedes and a BMW, all less than 2 years old.
Germany officially does not know that we import cars for clients from Russia. This is done through multiple moves. An order is placed, for example, from Turkey, then from Turkey it goes to Armenia, and from Armenia we deliver the car to Russia.
It's a long way.
Very expensive and very long.
Is Hyundai training academy, it still works.
Ararat drives a VW, which took 6 months to arrive from Germany via Belgium, Georgia, Armenia and Iran. He's imported dozens of other cars, including British brands, and insists he's done nothing wrong.
Armenia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, it's like European Union. So if the good hits Kazakhstan, for example, it's already not only Kazakhstan product, it's already a product of custom union.
You don't think you're doing anything wrong?
Illegal. No, you're not doing anything wrong.
What about morally? Some people might say this is not in the spirit of sanctions. Morally, it's questionable.
I don't think it's something from the sphere of immorality, you know. I mean, it's business and the business is to be done to feed the people.
It has made the cars a lot more expensive, though. Double what they were before sanctions, but he says nothing's too rich for Russia's super rich.
I don't think there will be any way to stop people bringing this car in, because people who want to drive Ferrari I think they will not change to.
They'll buy the car no matter the cost.
Yes, they always have the money. And then where is the demand, there will always be supply.
There's definitely a different perspective here than before sanctions were imposed, but it seems they're not quite biting as the West may have hoped. Ivor Bennett, Sky News, Moscow.
Well, that's it this evening from the World Team. I'll be back in the next few minutes for the Sky News at 10. Good night.